Three little dots, more equal to computer. All right, so we got.
Hi Nadine, how are you this morning?
Welcome. All right, so I am introducing our council chair, Craig. Come on up.
Good morning, everyone. We're happy to be here on an early Saturday morning, and we thank you for giving up some of your time on a Saturday morning to learn a little more. We've been doing some various training sessions, and we've landed on having Manny, our LCIF coordinator for MD4, teach on LCI and LCIF grants. So it's exciting. If you guys have a question, raise your hand on the computer on the Zoom app, and we will stop and try to answer your questions. Let's give it up for Manny.
And so we're ready to dig in. Again, I'm both the MD4 LCIF coordinator and the global leadership training team. Seth makes me super busy and I haven't seen home yet. Anyway, as I move forward, the objective of this course is to give awareness to both LCI and LCIF grants and how to apply for them, because this workshop we will work through some of the grant applications. This is actually teamwork. Teamwork is critical for this, because as I did the research and working with LCI on both sides, you do need lots of signatures. You have a plan. And so teamwork is critical for getting a grant through. And so we're going to first go through one, then the other group as we go through. As we say teamwork, the global action team, as in service membership and leadership, these LCI grants apply to them, but they also apply to the LCIF grants, and we'll show you why they do apply to them too. And in filling out the applications, you usually need one of their signatures, whether it's the council chair or the coordinator at the multiple district or the district level to get these grants through. Excuse me. One of the big things that we talk about as we go through the process is, what is the grant cycle? What is it? A lot of people aren't sure about the grant cycle. So again, we're at the research stage, if you can see on the screen. And in that, we have to prepare for all the information needed to apply for a grant. And this goes for any grant, whether it's LCI or private foundations. This is a standard cycle to all grants. All grants need to, again, have the application submitted, and that means the signatures. And I'll show you how to read the information that it takes to write these grants. Implementing it, and there's another part in there is also documentation, as well as getting photographs, because the LCI really does require photographs and receipts. And it is spelled out in the application. So when you read an application, look at what needs to be done to close the grant as you are going through it. So during that preparation part, you really have to make some checklists, and they do give you checklists to say, okay, I need photographs, I need receipts, I need documentation, and then to close a grant. All grants operate that way. That's the standard procedure. After that, you would do an evaluation, and that's the time to actually submit to close the grant. And you will some grants are fully funded in the beginning, some grants are partially funded as they process through, and some grants, not LCIs, are funded after the project. Well, let me correct myself. LCI does do post-grant funding, and we'll show you which ones as well. So, questions first before I move on, because that's a pretty big scoop as we went in. That's the standard grant process to us and to anybody if you're going to do it exterior. So as I move on, we have our association grants. We have our membership grants, our leadership grants, which are both at the multiple and district. And then we also have our Leadership Institute grants, our marketing grants, and our LEO grants. I will say right up front as we go into these, that these are really at the multiple district level and at the district level. These are not really club specific, because what LCI likes you to do is do teamwork. So if you do have it at the club level, they really want you to partner with another club. And we'll go through explaining, I'll go through the website, I will show you where these are, and then as we move forward. So LCIF, these are the grants that are available for LCIF. SIGHTFIRST, and I'll explain what they mean. Matching grants, most people know what those are, but again, we'll go through those. Diabetes grants, disaster grants, Lions Quest grants, designated grants, Leo grants, district and club community impact, which really does it. That's one of the few that's specifically to the clubs. The humanitarian award grant, the hunger grant, and the childhood cancer program. So with that, I'm going to jump out of this site and move over to my, let me just get over here and change it to LCI real quick, and I will bring up the LCI site itself. Stand by. Going here. Okay, so as we go through this, it's real easy to look at where grants lie in this. Let me just move this little bar down because it's blocking information. There it goes, it should be hiding. All right, so as we go through this, the easiest thing to do is type in the little search engine grants. And I'm gonna go and talk about grant types right here. In this highlighted area, once you type in and touch the search engine, it'll say grant types. And this is the first area that you should be looking at. The search engine will pull up a series of grants, and the very first one is grant types. You would click that link, and you would get into the same thing that I just talked about. If you look in here, is the LCIF series of grants and all the Lions grants. And like I said before, we're going to first go through the Lions grants in general, as they say, the association grants, and then we will move over to the LCIF grants. So clicking the box related, the membership grant, the most important thing to talk about is your criteria of getting a membership grant. And currently, the multiple district is getting a membership grant as we speak. So the global membership team with the council governor is applying for that specific grant. And if you touch where it says criteria, you understand what they're going to do. So it comes up as a PDF. It talks about the application requirements, both at the district. This is a district specific grant or a multiple district grant. And I also found out some information about what is a, what do they call it? I'll show you in a second. It's blanking my mind, but undesignated zone and undesignated region. And it was really interesting to get that information from the grant. But again, as you can see here, it talks about completing the grant, what it takes to do this, grant goals, action steps, and your budget. All these grants do need a budget because they really want to make sure that you are spending the funds wisely. And they'll talk about all the specific things that are needed for the membership grant. We currently, and you'll be seeing some links, applied for that in the multiple district, and it will be a Zoom. We felt that it was most effective for our multiple to apply for this particular grant as a Zoom. We're having outside experts from the United States come into this Zoom grant and actually talk about how to grow your club and club growth. So this is really something that's under the GMT, Global Membership Chair grant. As we move back forward, and again, you can stop me, the Leadership Development Grant and the District Grant, this one actually is district specific. Every district can apply to do a zone training workshop and they get $500. Right now, the grants themselves have been depleted, but I have been told, please put your application in because funding is usually released because of the demand. So what they do is they start a little small and they say, we don't want to allocate all this money or we can't really recover it. So what they do is they budget little and then they add more as the year goes on. So encourage your future leaders to go for this grant at the district level. Again, it does also spell out the criteria that's here. They're very good about talking about how to model this. Again, this is working with your leadership team as well as your executive officers, or even if you're planning to get people pushed up or yourself up to zones and knowing how to do zone training. Because believe it or not, people don't realize, but it could be a five week, or they're blocks of 4 hours, and you can do it as much as, you can do it in 2-3 days, or you can do it in a series of days. And we always recommend a series of days because it's a lot of information. And I believe you guys went through that. So if you didn't apply for the grant, here's something else, and you didn't get the money, there's a form in there that has post-grant and get cost recovery if there's money left over at the end of the year. So people who have done the workshop, we tell the governors, apply for this, because then you'll get 500 back in your budget if you didn't apply for it. So it's always a benefit. And right here, they'll talk the packet for the district. You'll go into the district packet, or you'll talk about verification of doing this. And I can send it, oh, here it is, the reimbursement. The reimbursement packet allows you to get reimbursed if you've done the workshop and you want to ask for funds, if funds are available, and they will send that to you. So I hope that's helpful. Moving back, we go over to the Leadership Institute grant. What's nice about this one is that as a global leadership for the multiple, we applied for these already. And this is what's coming up for January and March. So you have the Emerging Lions, and we want to do this. I believe we'll have the web link for registration open. Emerging Lions are pre-president club presidents or presidents. They really are going after the vice presidents or any of the officers. This is really getting these new people to be leaders. And this is what makes this important. It is in Northern California this year, but that's how you get it. And so we have applied. We actually have been awarded at the well, we're not getting funding, and I'll explain that later on this one, but we have been allowed to do this because we've already budgeted. Because what we do continuously is the Regional Institute, which means that this is a little bit higher level. This is district officer level above, usually set for the first and second vice district governors, but everyone's welcome. So we're hoping that the new cabinets go to the Emerging Lions, and then the regional, which we've always done, which is going to be in Anaheim in March, will be available for anyone to apply for. So we have a budget. This pays for part of it. This reimburses the multiple district. But the nice thing about this is that we have a two-step level. We did it for multiple reasons. One is we never done an Emerging Lions Institute, but we've done 2 regional institutes, and we actually took the money and split it between the 2. Well, now we had that budget already set. We said, why don't we just put everyone in the regional that wants to go to the regional, and another one for the emerging that needs to go. Another reason for that is that we were finding that enrollment was dropping. Believe it or not, we were struggling and worried. We came close this past 2 years of actually closing the class because we knew we weren't going to be able to do the reimbursement because we didn't have enough people. They've got that close, both of them, Anaheim and up north. So we now think that we can pretty much satisfy this by doing this level. Moving back to the grants, and I'll try to get through the LCI because they are kind of boring anyway. Sorry. Public relation grants. Well, again, this is a multiple district grant. Districts can apply for this, but also it works in a way of what's seen here as zones provisional. Single district can apply if the multiple didn't apply for this. We applied for it because that's what's funded 15,000 to the float. So it was applied. We did get an award letter, and we're just raking in grants this year, so we're doing good. So we did do this. Now, before I move on, there's a definition that we talked about, these 2 groups, which was new for me because it's never been explained. And I will just go snap out of this, go over to our handy dandy policies. Nothing better than wake up with a good Lions policy. And here's
You're an exciting guy.
yeah. And here's the definitions about a provisional district, a provisional region, and provisional zones. Basically, in a short wording, it's a size of a district that doesn't qualify for being a district. It's just below the count. Then the next level, the zones and regions, it's below the count for a zone, I mean a region. Then the count, so if you look at the numbers, 3 to 8 clubs in an unterritory area, say a new country, that's a provisional zone. 9 and above goes to up to 16 clubs, goes into a provisional region. And then above that, up to, I think it's a small number. Let me go down to the provisional district. 17 up to, the quote is 450 Lions total is the provisional district. Anything above becomes a scattered district. I did not know that. That was something that leadership told us this week actually, because people were going to ask, what does this mean? I'm a zone. Well, you're actually an established zone, standard zone as they call it. So I hope that's some information to keep you from applying and finding out that you couldn't get the grant. So moving on. Back to the website. So that's the marketing grant itself. Now moving back over to my grant types. Again, everything in the header, just right here, can move you back and forth if you're blocking, going back and forth. But you have these at your fingertips. The last one is the leadership grant program. Now there's actually 2 Leo grant programs. There's a service grant program, which actually goes down to the district level, and a multiple district grant, and it's the same thing. If the multiple district applied for the grant, which I think they did for our youth grant program, they will get the funding first. If the multiple didn't apply for that, then districts are available to get pieces of it. So that's in a coordination between your leaderships and your youth, your district Leo coordinators, to find out if you apply for these grants. Again, I tell everyone the criteria is right here on every grant. So you can go in there, click on that, and read for yourself the rules of the grants. And that went to a blank. Let me close out. Get it out of here, go back to the PDF. There it goes. And it tells you what these grants mean. So you go all the way down, they'll talk about examples of projects. It really works you through a Leo grant. The criteria that's needed, both at the district, multiple district, this is a teamwork. So if you have, there's nothing said that you work with other districts to get a Leo program going, especially if you have a youth camp and you need to support that youth camp. You have some major project that you want to take the grant, and like we're so large, you can break it apart between north and south, or north, central, and south. You know, work with your governors to say, hey, we want to be a participant of this and we want to apply. And if you don't get it this year, as I said in the cycle, work on getting it next year. Because if you see this and there's opportunities, a lot of these grants don't get funded because no one applied for them. And especially the one that I mentioned before, the zone training, I get calls going, is anyone, like currently, I think only 3 districts applied for it at our, yeah.
You know, Mandy, I just we just did a Leo grant, our first one, and our Leo club got $1,100, $1,200 in a grant fund for doing female products to homeless shelters in our area. And they are so excited, and the Leos are just like, this is awesome, you know, because the gal, our president, has been doing it out of her allowance money.
Yes.
So this is an opportunity for them to now have the whole club involved and get out there. Of course, our club threw in $500, and so now they got $2,000 to
right.
spend. So pretty exciting.
Here's a tip: download this anyway, even down to the club level. Get your youth committee together, read the criteria, and apply to other organizations. major corporations, Mattel has grants. Did you know that most of our sports people have grants for youth activities?
Sports people
Like the Angels, Rams, all of them. They all have youth-based, you can take this criteria, do the research, pull theirs down. You have LCI's version, their version, and then apply for theirs. So, yeah, so the best training example is using our grant models to apply for other grants that are not Lions. That's why we would go and search around. Go Google grants that are related, like membership grants, service projects. They have them all over the place where there are foundations giving money to do service projects. We don't have to just wait for us, but we can use LCI's information as models to actually get out there and to build something and to get a library together for future leaders to apply for. So let's move back to this. And what I want to do at this point is actually, let me just stop this. And I'm going to, that was the global of our LCI grants. I'm opening it up for everybody. Have any questions? So before I move forward, because I just fired through this, yes.
Betty, one of the things I want, it's not really a question, but a comment. When I've applied for the youth for like the Rams, I think I did for the Dodgers. Basically, they told me they focus their money in like, I'm Orange County, so they're LA County.
Right.
So does anybody know a way kind of around that possibly?
Yes.
Because it just seems like every time I apply, they tell me, well, we're focusing in on our LA County and not.
So you would apply, and this goes for everyone that's online, youth grants, and either put your zip code in or your city or your county. And you put youth grants available for here, and Google will filter it down to regional areas, regional grants that do apply for those.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you get on the phone, you come up with the criteria that are available for them, talk to a representative. And one thing that I will say about all grants is that you can fill out the application and don't just submit it in. Like you said, talk to a representative to refine the paperwork that fits their grant. So for example, I think some of the Orange County teams, you have the Angels, you have the hockey team, that would fit in this area.
Right.
Then you get a little more dynamic. You may find state grants and federal grants. Actually, there are some available out there as well. There's, you'll be surprised at how many grants that are available for the youth. There's more than most other populations other than some specialty grants like hunger, that are out there, but you can do that. Anybody online have any questions before we move on? Please feel free. Okay, I hope I got a lot. That was a lot of information just in LCI, but let's move on to LCIF. Okay, before I go into LCIF, I do have a second PowerPoint that I have that I want to bring up. And this one actually is for LCIF. I had the pleasure of having the PowerPoint that was presented by Brian Sheehan, our current chair, last year's president to Lions Clubs International. Let me see if I can get down there and get the controller. Let me stop that. Zoom's weird when it comes to getting the controller up and running. This is just some facts about what they do with LCIF grants. And again, this is presented to the coordinators. As you know, these grants are based on our basic charities vision, and the bottom one, I believe, let's see if we can hide this for a second. Hunger, is it hunger? Let me see if I can move it. Diabetes.
There you go.
So with that said, these are the grant causes that are out there for this particular group. And let me just close this. My computer's acting out. Okay. Mainly for lots, this is really a lot of this worldwide is the amount of money and the amount of grants that have gone out. for LCIF when they talk about donating to LCIF. You talked about the millions of surgeries going through it. And this isn't just a pitch for LCIF. This is actually the facts. So you know why the grants are working at it. For the US, $39 million have been funded and 1,444. That's this year's stats for the grants. Here's the part where I wanted to show you. On the global level, these are what the grants go out with matching. And we'll talk about these grants as we move on. And specifically, there's some things that are in here that you'll see that I was at basically at a workshop, and this was at USA Canada, talking about it. For instance, board directed impact. That's usually an event that the board has this project they want to do, that they're in a certain area. The board of directors want to do a service project, so they fund some projects in that area, or there's a specific issue that's happening and they know it's vetted. So the board directs, hey, we need some money here. A lot of that is really disaster. It's just that at that time, it wasn't earmarked as a disaster grant, but the board says, give them the funds, they need it. Compared to the community impact, which is what we're going to talk about, emergency grants, again, that's disasters oriented. And that one is also emergency, is also certain situations where they need I would honestly say it's in the realm of disaster, put it that way. There's a need, they needed to get the funding to it. A hospital, needs medicine or equipment. They find it's an emergency situation, they give them the money to do this. And but everything that they give out is vetted and also closed, because they will ask for, just to let you know, LCI, whether it's LCI or LCIF, if you don't close the grant, they will ask for the money back. And they got ways of doing that. So make sure that you close grants. Hunger grant was the next level. Diabetes. Lions Quest, which we'll talk about, is a grant that we really have not explored in California. That's a social emotional learning. And they're eager. I've been on conference calls saying, how can we deploy it into California? Because it's something they want to put here. Childhood cancer, again, that's really, it's not really in research, but that's more in equipment. We'll talk about that. Major catastrophes, again, that's, as you know, in United States, we get the tornadoes, we get the hurricanes. Funding is applied there, and there's trigger points of getting that. The humanitarian award, that's a matching grant. That's usually a major donor, like a doctor, and he's doing research, and they will give them turnaround if they see that it's fit. And I'll show you the site. They will apply for that, because that's anywhere up to 250,000. But those are some major grant people. If you'll see the names, you'll go, oh, I know who those people are. Again, going back down to the community recovery grant, that is a disaster grant, and we'll talk about that. That's interesting. People don't know that we have 4 disaster grants, 4 of them. One of them is actually preparedness, then emergency one, which is the one that governors can get within 48 hours, the major catastrophe grant, and then a recovery grant, which actually gives you more money than the disaster grant, because the disaster grant gives you 10,000, recovery gives you 15. So you can, and I tell people, when you're in it and you know that other agencies are coming in, go for the recovery grant, because you want to be there when everyone leaves. Then you have seed money, which is basically, that's actually applying for things. I will tell you that I had a meeting 2 weeks ago with the head person of LCIF, and they're working for California with Johnson & Johnson. And they want to do more screening. So they said, where do we put the money? And so that's going to be a pilot grant. And you can see it's a small amount of money. And Johnson & Johnson is actually based in Santa Ana. So they want to figure out what they need to do in vision. So that's just something that coming to do with this. As you can see, the global causes, where they go. Environment seems to be the smallest one. Very small grants are applied to in the environment. Again, this is,
that is.
Awareness.
Governments.
Awareness. We need to get people aware of our grants and train people to do exactly what we're doing right now to show, because we're gonna get into this section. The environmental grant, again, is the smallest in the United States. These are the stats as of last year. So only 22,000 of the entire United States went for environment, where humanitarian was up there. And humanitarian is easier to apply for because it's a broader reach than anything else. So specifics on others, yeah, they're gonna be a little bit smaller, but these are the grants that are up there, and I can forward these slides to people. Again, look at the amount of money that's designated and out for these grants overall. That's it for this section. Any questions? I hope that was kind of an eye-opening experience about grants in LCIF. So if there's not any questions before I move into the actual grant itself and how to write a grant, okay, I'll get into that. Let me just make sure my website is ready. And we will dig into back to the grant types. And again, use these as models for applying to other grants. These are great exercises. If you don't get it from one group, you'll get it from another. That's what makes the major universities so successful in applying for these grants. You see these huge universities and they've got teams Google searching and writing to people to do something, to get something done. And that's why we say, you know, we had this SWOT analysis. Find out what the impact is and what the need is, and come out with your mission statement for a grant so that you can move forward in it. So if you have an idea, get a team together to do it and find out which group, as we go through these grants, fit first. And if they don't fit, then move forward to outside grants and other groups. Because what helps us is that one of our foundations actually qualifies us through the door. I mean, our club itself, and I come from District 402, we developed a foundation just to apply for grants. And it has been working about this. We have a small little one, and we moved our charities into the foundation, and now all our stuff is going through that foundation. And we allowed it to be because we have Scouts and Leos. They can apply without any restrictions through our foundation. And we went through all the steps that are there in LCI to do this. And I know someone's going to ask me, how do you do that? And I will show you first before we go back. Well, I'll show you real quick as we go to grants and how we do that. It's real easy. As you go and do the search engine and you put in the word legal. And it says legal resources. Click on the link. And you click on the first thing that's legal resources. And you scroll all the way down. By the way, there's your bylaws. You scroll, and if you want night reading, there's the executive summary. Bypass dispute resolution. But anyway, go into incorporate foundations and registering agents. And that gives you a step-by-step and samples of how to do a foundation at the club level. And we've been real successful in doing that in our club. So we have a 501c3 and we have a 501c4, and our board meets at the same time, at the same day. So we submit our first group, and then we adjourn, and then we activate the second group, and we get done. And we make it pretty strict about questions to ask, and we have to remind everyone that one's one group and one's another group, so that the minutes reflect where it's at. But that's how you start your own foundation if you want to apply for grants outside of Alliance, because a lot of them will ask for a 501c4 or C3, sorry. And those are the process to do it. Now let's move on back to the grants themselves. Okay, SIGHTFIRST grants. That is your vision specific grants for both activities, equipment, and function. It is a very broad grant for vision projects, and it also has research grants. And again, they have the criteria right there, as you can see, without me stopping the little mouse. You have criterias here and how to apply. And this will pop up on my screen. And it'll show you what does and don'ts. Most of these applications do a do and don't. As you can see, there's the phasing. As I said before, you have the planning state, the application development, the application reviewed. All the steps I said in that wheel are right here. And I recommend if you're gonna do any grant, download all these applications and find the formula that works for you and being able to apply for any grant. They'll talk about the steps that are taken here. For an LCI or LCIF grant, I'll give you some headers right up front. Grants need to be submitted 2 months before the board of directors meetings. In the calendar, in the LCI calendar, shows you when they meet. And that's the time that you need to talk to the grant department of who you're applying for and have them review your grant so that they'll say, hey, this is great, we're forwarding it. So you don't be disappointed if it's pushed back. They will definitely work with you to get that grant to move forward or tell you if it's a fit or not. So it's not a waste of time. And again, if LCI can't do it, you can take that grant and move it to another agency outside of Lions and apply for that as well. But remember that there's a reporting mechanism and a closing mechanism that needs to be in the process itself. There's always that. I mean, that's where a lot of groups overall, I professionally work for LA County Office of Education, and we give out grants as well as look for grants. And the number one thing that they're asking is, have we documented it so we can close the grant? Because we're prepared to apply for it again. You know, so it works. And again, like you said, that's where it's at. Matching grants. That's the big boy. This is the one that everybody talks about, matching grants. I want a matching grant. This is the one that goes up to 200,000 total as an LCIF grant and as small as 10,000. Now, that's a lot, especially, it's a lot and it's not a lot, but be creative of what you're applying for. And pretty much if you meet the criteria, and just as you scroll down, there's a criteria here that talks about what is a matching grant and how it works for you. And they will go down to what's eligible and what's not eligible. They're pretty clear about it. For example, research is one of the biggest things. We're not paying for research in a matching grant, but we are paying for tangible stuff or a service project or something that's really Lionism. So it's a very flexible grant. It's something the budget. It's usually also the other tip is that it usually needs 2 clubs to do this. So 2 clubs applying for this grant, and a lot of clubs use it lately. Either will go to the SIGHTFIRST or to this grant to get screening machines if they want to, or going to get other equipment that's needed. Because let's just back up a bit. We have specific grants that we can take advantage of, and then we have the matching grant, and then we have community impact grant. So with this can be a broader picture of a project. Like say that you want to put out, it's not a youth grant, but you want to put like shade for the kids to be out in the back. That could be applied to the matching grant because that shade is very expensive. You know, putting a shade at a park, matching and working with another foundation. Our club with our foundation did a matching grant to put in a new playground. Whittier Host does it all the time. They put in 5, I think. I think La Habra put in a playground in there, and those are very expensive. And what's nice about matching grants, it doesn't have to be your club. What it means is that say that your club came up with 10,000 or even 5,000. And I'll tell you how ours did it. Our club really had only $5,000 to do this playground grant. And then we were applying for this matching grant to put the playground in. And then we came in partnership with Kaboom, that nonprofit. And the city says, well, if you're going to put in it, we have reserve. We'll put in money too. So we were about to apply, but then everyone got on the bandwagon that we didn't even have to apply for the matching grant. And we got the playground. Now they're coming back going, can we do it again? Then all it needed was A, our club, and B, because we had a 501c3 that caused the ball rolling. And now it's snowballed to saying, hey, the city needs a nonprofit to put a dog park in. We got it. We didn't even put a penny out. And we're now doing it. And then we said the one criteria is that we want to be there to help build it. So back to the playground, we had city officials there, we had the Rotarians there, we had the Kiwanis there. Everyone was taking pictures as they put this playground together. The dog park is going the same way. So be creative about your grants. Use this as a great example about using a community impact or the matching grant criteria. The matching grant criteria, again, as you go down this application and writing it out, is specific in the sense of how to use your matching grant. There is a questionnaire right in front before you even do this. You can read this for yourself, download it, and talk about what's needed. You can even call the grant department and ask them, will this fit? Before you even start the project, you know, or they will give you examples. There are examples here of how to use the matching grant. But as I said before, a matching grant doesn't have to be the money from your two clubs. It can be also you have another partner, another foundation saying, we're going to add money too. And then you can prove, you know, because there's a form that we have that says 10,000, 5,000 from two clubs is the 10,000, another 10,000 from another foundation, another 10,000 from another foundation. They built it up to 100. We're going to ask for a matching grant of 100 from LCIF, and you get the projects. Yes, Scotty.
Manny, can you, on a matching grant like that, can you also use something like the California Lions Foundation to help
Yes.
out as well?
Yes. Yes, you can.
What about another service organization like Kiwanis or?
Yes.
Could you team with them and?
You just have to have letters authenticating it and expect a letter from their treasurer saying money has been reserved for this grant.
Awesome.
So yes, you can partner with other organizations. In fact, now there's a big push of us partnering with other service groups to do this. And this is a perfect example of doing a matching grant and doing it. So the guidelines are right here. They talk about it and they're really good about the prescription, the scope of work. It's really detailed and it doesn't need to be crazy. We applied, we took this and quite frankly, I've done quite a few of these matching grants. I've taken this, highlighted it, popped it to Word and just filled in the blanks and just said, boom, 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 boom. I took an Excel spreadsheet and came up with, as you go further down, and came up with my budget. I actually converted this or made my own through Excel and made my own, you know, right there where it says income, it says Lions, it's right there, Lions, Partners, LCIF, right there. So you can get an Excel spreadsheet, put it together, build your budget, then go on. I will say Whittier Host has been the biggest group in our area to get grants, and they built a kitchen for the Battered Women's Center. They're just doing another one for another youth group. We used it to get our iMobile, which is still very active. That iMobile is out like 3 times a week. It's a very well-used iMobile. It's sometimes overused, but it's well used. We bought our district level spot cameras, which is, I can't tell you how busy it is because Head Start federal level requires every child to be screened. We don't have enough Lions to do the job. You know, in LA County alone, we're somewhere around 600 or 700,000 kids under K-12. Because we have 2.5 million kids in LA County in public schools. That's just public schools. That's not private. So there's a need if we deal with the schools. But here's a simple grant application that you can write in Excel and build it yourself. I think there's a question. Is there a question in the question? And then again, the endorsements, this calls for the district governor to endorse the project, as well as if this is a multiple district level, that means if there's 2 districts going at it, the council chair needs to sign it. This is the checklist. Again, it's very easy to go through the checklist and then the grant submission. And again, I tell people 2 months before the next board meeting, get it in so you can get it reviewed and pre-approved. And I have never seen anything that came back saying it's not approved. So that's the critical part, to get it to their staff, to review it, to pre-vet it, and get it into the thing, because they write a narrative. We did that for our marketing grant, where I worked back and forth for the multiple district to make sure the wording was perfect enough that they said, we got it. We do this, the same thing with our leadership grants. We work with them and then they say, got it. Whether you're Lions or external, just call them and work it out, saying this is our scope of the project. This is what we want to do. Give us some tips that'll make it fit your criteria. I hope that's helpful. Let's get out of this, back to there. So that's the matching grants. Back to the next level, diabetes grants. Now, diabetes itself is very, very broad in scope. Again, they talk about the criteria for this. This particular grant is, I believe, multiple club as well as district and multiple district levels. And they fund one won't kick out another, not like the leadership grants in the LCI. So if a club district partnership wants to do a grant and the district wants to do a grant, they can do that. By the way, pushing back to the matching grant, every district gets 2 grants per cycle, which means that if there's a grant out there that they've done, they got to close that grant to open it up for another grant. And so we work with your LCIF coordinator to make sure all your grants are cleared, and it's super easy to close a grant. Documentations, receipts, and photographs. One of them saying LCIF, boom, it's closed. I've done it overnight. And so these ones are talking about specific grants, community. There are some grants in here that are specific. This one gives you the guidelines of what you can and can't do. A lot of this is dealing with, like I said, camps, clinics, equipment to do screening. So all this is spelled out in this criteria. And they will be honest in saying what doesn't and doesn't work. They've given you options here, goals. They're very good about talking about how to do this. And look, the grant process is the same. How you do this, the title, the location, budget, all the grants, that's the formula. Once you get into doing grants, it's cakewalk because you know the formula is always the same. You want a proof of concept, how you're going to do it, how much is it going to cost, how long is it going to take, where is it going to be at, and here's all the information that I did it. So I hope that's helpful there. Moving back. So that's the diabetes application. That's the diabetes grant itself. Moving on to disaster grants. Disaster grants really impacts us directly. This is probably one of the most used grants, even though it's not the top one because humanitarian is the #1. Disaster grants are dealt with, obviously, disasters. What would affect here? Could be major flooding because water came down from Riverside, in the Orange County area. It could be the beach, water coming in. It could be the earthquake. Within me living or working in Los Angeles County, really working in Los Angeles County, it's a disaster. No, just kidding. But the preparedness grant, yeah, I know. I got my Red Cross stuff outside. Yes, I am a Red Cross instructor too. So anyway, the disaster preparedness grant is a grant that allows you to prepare. A lot of these, if you notice, other districts, they buy a trailer full of equipment, and it's always good to have something that's on standby. What does that mean? That means that we don't have to start up a kitchen, but we can have a resource center. This room that we're having this can be turned into an emergency resource center. It doesn't need to be a shelter, doesn't need to be a kitchen, but it could be a place saying, you know what? We had this apartment fire down the street and people need to do their paperwork. Boom. You got a disaster grant. You can use it like that. You have something that needs to be moved. Well, I need a trailer for that with just tables and chairs and pop-ups. Boom, you got it. You just need to do this. This is also a matching grant, so the district's gonna have to come up with money for this. It's spelled out in the criteria, but it's a great way to prepare for something that will happen.
What about food stores and stuff?
Huh?
Would they help on storing food for emergencies?
That's the hunger grant.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yes, Scotty.
What about something like an oil spill, like we had off Huntington Beach here? Would that qualify under the disaster grant?
Not really, that's an industrial accident. But if it was something, that directly impacted people, let's say that they had to evacuate something and you needed to get the people there, then something like that, a catastrophe in a sense. Hurricanes usually work for that. That's why we don't get a lot of hurricanes. But
Mother Nature.
yeah, it's really a natural disaster cause. I heard somebody out there, did they have a question? Okay, as we move on, emergency grants are the grants that are, we have an earthquake in Southern California, we have something, we can apply, the governor can actually get on the phone and say, literally, get on the phone and say, I need the emergency grant, this is the situation, it's over X amount of people. The criteria, and I'll show you the guidelines to this, is dealing with, the emergency grants anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. Must be applied and dealt with local resources. And there are guidelines. I've worked with many different districts about opening a grant. The latest grant we had open was the snow situation that was up in the mountains. And that made sense. They said, that makes sense. We need to get them money. They got the money. Dealing with if they use all the money, because that's the other part, just like other grants, you got to use all of it. And you got to justify why using it. Never use cards, gift cards. Never, ever use gift cards. I've gone through that both with Lions and with Red Cross. I can tell you a story as I was responded. I was there at the house, down to the ground, just the foundation. What's that? La Habra Heights, the big, expensive, big, huge house, down to the ground. Give them the card. Yes, this is a fire you need. Here's the hotel. Boom, 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 gone. I get a call. I wasn't even at home. He goes, you know that group that you did? He says, yeah. They just bought tickets to ski in Colorado with it. Oh, I bet you're kidding me. He says, no. So they stopped it. I says, well, what happened with their house? They were partiers. They didn't care. It wasn't their house. They rented it.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I can go on with stories, but
There's crooks
gift
everywhere.
cards don't work. Shovels, gloves, cleaning materials, food, clothing, all work. The thing too is that when you get this grant, get a partner, because Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's will all partner and they'll either give you a discount or will match it. Especially if you say, I'm gonna buy this, so you buy 20 buckets, they'll give you 20 buckets on top, so you got 40. Use your emergency grant wisely, because you've got lots of opportunities. There are people that are out there that will help you. So that's the emergency part, emergency grant. The major catastrophe first, before I go to the recovery. Again, those are specific. If we have the big one here and we really needed help, they know it. They see it on the news. They get the feeds from West Coast. They know, and they'll say, hey, this has gotten bigger. This is actually multiple county-wide. The catastrophe grant is available and it's recurring. As long as we get a plan. So I always tell people that, especially at district levels, to get a disaster committee. Remember Lions Alert? It still exists. It's a committee for preparing for a disaster, not just response, but preparing. What do you need in your community? What do you need? Or even if it's not a grant in itself, I'm putting my other group hat on, but being the coordinator of it. Like I said, this parking lot would be perfect at this location to give a water distribution or an information, something that you can just say, hey, put the pallets over there, but you don't have to deal with anything that's perishable. Think out of the box, what you can do with a catastrophe grant or how to use it so you can use it effectively. Because that is a lot of money. It's coming this way and you want to use it for the greater need. And at that point, you would be working with your Other government agencies, yes, FEMA, yes, Red Cross, yes, some of the other groups to do the catastrophe grant to make it effective and to be able to close the grant because that's the most important. Now, back here, the community recovery grant. That happens after the disaster. I recommend a team of every district or even a club that wants to partner with other clubs to be prepared for an event of a disaster and read what it takes to get this recovery grant. And that happens, let's just say, and I worked with L5, that a grant, the disaster happened. I said, why don't you get a recovery grant? Close out your disaster grant, send the money back and ask for the recovery grant because they're gonna need to dig out. They're gonna need to rebuild. That works with the tools and equipment that need to rebuild that community back here. Same thing, we'll have, something happens with the water and this area is prone for flooding, both here, both in the community and by the beaches. So what do we do as a community impact grant? Mold abatement. I was, as my other volunteer group was sent to Hurricane Sandy, I was there for a month in the East Coast, and I saw waves and waves of lions in yellow vests going in and cleaning out houses. And they used their grant money to abate pre-mold. They were cutting the drywall out. They were paying for or working with partners with dumpsters to deal with water and water issues. We have water issues here in Southern California. So think out of the box. Could you be prepared to use a recovery grant to deal with flooding or any of those issues with water that we have on a natural level? So that's those grants that are available with disaster. Moving on. Going
Rick
back.
has a question.
Yes. Is there a question?
Yeah, Manny, it's Big Rick in San Francisco. What are the typical timeframes? Are they 12 months typically on these grants? Or are some longer?
In length, as in staying open?
Yeah.
Okay, for a disaster grant, each one has a specific time frame. So it's usually, if I remember, a couple of months after the disaster to close the grant, because it's quite obvious you don't need the money. So go ahead and send the money back. So those are things. So come up with a plan of things to do it. And just to let you know, on a disaster grant, the disaster coordinator or the person who applied for the grant can actually go and talk to them and modify the grant. So say that they find out that somebody donated buckets, but saying, well, they need shovels now. Then they said, we're going to modify it. They're going to put it in their notes. Now you can go buy a bunch of shovels. They'll say, well, winter's coming around. It's the disaster. We need the money now to go to jackets. So be creative, be constant communication with your contact at LCIF, and they will work with you. Just make sure that it's sensible. And what I do a lot too is that let me back up, not me, but I search really quickly. FEMA has a site of list of supplies that qualify that you need for a disaster. Why reinvent the wheel? You go to the FEMA site, you'll see flooding, mold, snowpacks, tornadoes, earthquakes. They all have a list of recommended supplies. Put that on your list going, I'm gonna be a resource to give those supplies out. Did that help you, Rick? In the application, it actually tells you what the duration is, and also the acceptance letter gives you a timeline of when to do it. Now, if it's extended, just let them know that you're working on it, because we had that at the multiple district level where we just closed a grant this year. And the issue is that we were dealing with 3 federal agencies, and each one needed the other. They were pointing at each other to close the Teresita Pines grant because one was a state land versus federal land versus, you know what it takes when you get like 3 or 4 federal agencies on top of the state agencies and the county agencies to say, the building's done. So just work with them, let them know that you're working on the process, just vet exactly why it's being delayed, and they'll work with you. They're pretty reasonable. So, okay, moving on real quick, the Quest grant. emotional grants hasn't been used in California very heavily. One of the big issues that comes is where and how, because this is an after-school program and you need buy-in from the district, you need buy-in from volunteers. You got a couple of buy-in stuff, but there's money out there. There's money to promote it. There's money for materials. There's even certain money to actually pay for tutors. So, and there's curriculum and it's ongoing. So as I say, May 1st is the deadline to get in this. So you got deadline applications, and here it is right in front in the application, due 90 days prior to the board meetings, and they tell you when the board meetings happen. Those are the 4 board meetings. They have what, May 1st, August, October, January, and February. So I'd say that, yeah. So anyway, those are the dates ahead of the board meetings themselves. So those are important dates to know. That gives you the purpose of this grant. And they've been eager to get it. The school districts actually just buy the curriculum locally, but if that's all they need, help apply for the grant and get the books to the kids. You know, this is anti-bullying, social emotional. So there's a lot of opportunities for the Quest program. And I believe I'll try to get a subject matter expert in this because they're really pushing for California to do this. I seem to be the call with these grants. Designated grants. These grants are a little bit more specific on a particular thing. And like I said, the measles, that's, if you had something in your area, this is more of global issues where they had the measles project, a couple of other projects. This is a specific grant that went out and it's just designated for a particular topic that's out there. Moving on. The Leo grant, service grant, again, just like the leadership grant, the Leo service grant is coming up with a service project, which is probably what was applied here. Just getting ideas and giving money to do kids. Again, they talk about what's available. I'll click on this promotional flyer. Talking about examples of projects, fixing spaces, hunger, planting gardens. And so work with your district and multiple district and seeing what we can do as a service project. Those are available. And again, the process is exactly the same. Moving over to, was it designated the LCIF grants? Did I jump around? Where was I? Okay, all right, now we get into, this is the heart and butter of any club who has donated to LCIF. If a club has donated to LCIF and they have exceeded 5,000 in a year to LCIF with multiple donors, they get $750 every year to do a humanitarian project. They just got to apply for it. Our club has donated every year, and we got 3 years worth of it because you can bank it up to 15 years. So we have that. Get a hold of your district coordinator to find out if you have money in reserve. Now, what happens to a club that doesn't make that? Well, that fund is actually banked and moved to the district. And I can tell you, there's a lot of money in this district right now in the community impact grant to do a community impact project. It has, the only criteria has to be humanitarian, so it's very broad. So the same thing, you will apply for it. You'll do everything just like I said, that whole research. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna use it? Where are you gonna use it? When? And then have all the stuff to close the grant. So I have a video that I'm gonna show everybody about what is a community impact grant. So let me get to that video. I got that optimized. Here we go. I will move my little space bar here that's blocking the go button. Here it is.
Together, Lions and LCIF are changing the world one community at a time. And to thank you for your partnership and service, your foundation has created the District and Club Community Impact Grant. This program is uniquely designed to expand your service and help you make an even greater impact in your communities. DCGs enable clubs and districts to receive grants of up to 15% of their donations to LCIF in a given Lion year. After all, our mission is to support Lions clubs like yours, serving communities near and far. DCGs can keep funds local, helping you impact what matters most, where it matters. Clubs that give at least $5,000 and districts giving at least $10,000 to LCIF's Empowering Service Fund can apply for a DCG and do so every year they're eligible. Funds can be used when they're received or can be accumulated over multiple years for larger projects.
It takes just 5 steps to secure a DCG. First, club members choose a project. For example, Lions Club 1968 decided to host a holiday dinner at a local orphanage and donate toys to the children. The club donated $5,000 to LCIF during the Lion year, making it eligible to receive a grant of $750. Club members considered this when creating a project budget, outlining how they plan to use their DCG funds. Fun fact, DCGs provide the only opportunity for single clubs to access LCIF grant funds. With help from information on Lions Club's website, the club submitted its DCG application. When LCIF shared news that the application had been approved and grant funds were on their way, club members got to work preparing for what turned out to be a heartwarming event that fed the bellies of the local orphanage children, giving them a brighter holiday and future. After celebrating its successful event, the club reported project outcomes to LCIF, which then shared the good news worldwide.
In just 5 easy steps, from project concept to conclusion, Club 1968 brought to life a new annual tradition, delivering holiday cheer to local children. What could your club or district do with funds from a district and club community impact grant? Provide vision and diabetes screenings? Plant a community vegetable garden? Apply them to matching funds required for another LCIF grant. Each year, LCIF gets in touch with qualifying clubs and districts to thank them for their support and share news of their eligibility and next steps. As you consider the endless possibilities for your club, LCIF is working hard to help Lions worldwide make a difference.
You can visit lionsclubs.org/DCG to learn more, like when to submit an application and what DCGs can be used for. You can also email donorassistance@lionsclubs.org to see how much of your club's or district's donations to LCIF are eligible this Lion year.
So you can see that the grant itself is available for the club and or the district based on how much they raise in a given year for the community impact grant. So I would suggest to talk to your district coordinator to ask how, if your club did qualify, depending if they donated up to $5,000 per club per year, and if there's money set aside for them. It's a very fun project. It's easy to achieve. We do it because we give out that many Melvin Joneses a year. And so we said, hey, we average about, we either average or we supplement a Melvin Jones and we give it out and we have the money in our reserves every year. So right now, I think we're dealing with, in our club, we probably got $2,500 for DC grants that we're looking at a project to do. And in our district, we have about 14,000 for a district project. So those are available out there. So contact your coordinator. If you can't get a hold of them, call me and I will tell you how much you have on there. Yes.
So with this grant, you don't have to have your project already decided and tell them this is what we're gonna do. You can just ask for the money and then just.
No, you really do, you have to,
do stuff.
you
Okay.
still have
Got it.
to do this, and the apply will give you an application of what
Okay.
qualifies. And the FAQ will tell you what qualifies and what doesn't qualify. But it is broad because it's a humanitarian grant.
Okay,
Now, with that said, you have many opportunities to deal with what's out there. Let's just look at some of the FAQs on here. One nice thing about this grant is that you can partner. You have two clubs that both have money, put it together. You can do that. You have clubs that are together and they want to help the district to do a bigger project. You can get all the clubs that qualified to make a bigger project. So there's a lot of possibilities to use this funding and how they do this. And so as they move up, they got plenty of opportunities to do this. I know that as you know, they get very competitive about Melvin Jones's every year. Well, that actually is affecting the community impact grant. So as they donate more, it gives more money back to the district. And that's what's kind of neat about this. It's their way of saying, hey, thank you. And getting that ability for Lions to do some service project. So it's exciting, put it that way. I try to help clubs apply for this. The only problem is I got 4 of them in my district that didn't close it, so I got to get them to do that. Moving on, the humanitarian award, I won't even go into that, but that's basically the heavy hitters, the big boys that have, start these foundations, and they're doing big work in any of the medical community, mostly in the medical community. I mean, I'll just click on some of the recipients on this. You'll look at these doctors. I mean, look at them. They're almost all doctors. They got different foundations. And so you get the prestige of being a winner of this. You probably because of the donations, but also you get the ability to apply for a grant on these scenarios. So a lot of some of these are hospitals or other different projects, but that's what this humanitarian award grant is all about. Moving over, hunger grant. Again, the hunger grant, as I say, that's the one for the food. That's the one where you want to start a kitchen, or you want to rebuild a kitchen. You want to get refrigerators, you want to get stoves. You're helping either at a school site or a community center or a place like this, saying, hey, we got a population that needs a kitchen. This is where the hunger grant comes into work. Being able to apply for this, I believe it's a matching grant with some amount. And look right here, it tells you, it can even give you vehicles, the furniture, kitchen equipment, purchase, again, construction costs to build a kitchen. A lot of community centers need a kitchen. Again, one of our clubs is applying for this particular grant for a youth group. They needed a kitchen. Their kitchen was outdated. So we're going for the hunger grant. They had the money to match it. They did it.
So like, we have a place on the Chino called the Neighborhood House that gives out food to people who need it.
That's a great app group.
Okay, and they were struggling they needed refrigerators to keep, they can't even keep cold food now because the refrigerator. I can apply for a grant for that?
Yes. You're gonna apply for the grant for just the refrigerators. You can apply for the electrical to put it, say that it's not up to
Could it be
par.
all in one? Could it be all
You
in
can put
one
it all
grant?
in the same grant. It'll tell you the limitations of this, but you can put it in there. You can put it for, if you need those Cambro coolers to
What if
take.
they wanted to expand the building? They purchased the building, but they only use a small portion of it now because they don't have the money to expand it to a whole larger.
And the hunger grant is the kitchen part. You can't do the rest of the building, but you can work on the kitchen. So it's not the facility, but the kitchen. Now, if there's remodeling for the kitchen,
That's what I'm saying,
yes.
yeah.
And you just fill it out, go in there, talk with the coordinator at LCIF, and just say, this is the scope, and just get the bids. Usually you'll get the bids in. That's what these big boys that I've seen, big grants, they go in and they get contractors to do the bid. They go through the city people, they go through all that cost. They know everything that that they're not left in the dark or at the very end with a bill. You've got to be really good about that. And that includes all the permits, the time lag, and put in the timeline. And also put into the bid that, you know, we need this done at a certain time to be signed off. They'll do it. You know, if you don't, they say you're not getting your money. They'll do it. I've seen it, you know. They get freeways built after an earthquake, they do it. They can't give them a bonus, but they do it. So anyway, there's a lot of examples here, the criteria it takes to do this. You can be very creative about how you're feeding or to be fed or how to feed. You know, those grants are available. And then lastly, childhood cancer is a little more specific in the sense of what is needed for the cancer. Imagine you going to a children's hospital and you need to freshen up the exam room. You need to freshen up the waiting room. You want to make it that the child is having a friendly atmosphere because they're going through a lot. This is where this particular grant is examples, the strategies, construction, you know, you can, but not limited to construction, projects straightening the access, you know, if they need ramps, they need railings, they need to replace the door that's automatic for them to get in. You know, all that stuff that makes it easier for a child to feel welcome to get in to go through the cancer treatment. You know, if they need some little playroom, they use it for that. They don't use it for research. So if you have an idea about this grant, please move it forward and go through view the grant application. It spells everything out and they make it so simple. That's the point there. They make it so simple that it's easy to do. Let's see if you do that. And they'll talk about the do's and don'ts, the project by scope, and the guidelines. Always read the guidelines and talk about how to do this. And it's up there, up to 150,000 for this project. And I think it's, again, there's the criteria, the budget wise, and you can get it there. So maybe it's not done this year, but you want to do it next year, or you have a 3-year plan or a 4 or 5-year plan to get funds up to do any of these projects, especially the matching grant. Think out of the box, work as a team, and then there's ways of doing this. So I hope that I didn't overwhelm you with information, but the information is there. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint that I had to talk about the, let's see, go through here, escape, boom. And we will talk about the next steps. Here, bam. Okay. So in conclusion, LCIF and LCIF grants, you want to review the qualifications of the grant itself. You want to contact your global action team leaders, especially if you're going for the LCI grants. Contact your LCIF coordinator if you're going for LCIF grants. So you got LCI and LCIF. Come up with a development plan and also talk about the grant cycle wheel. You're in the research, you want to prepare, you want to apply, you want to implement, and you want to evaluate. So if you need to get a hold of me, this is where I'm at. I hope I didn't overwhelm everyone, but thank you.
Awesome.